The Fields Effect by Dr. Alon Giladi.
Doctrine move, the leap of the way. The sleeper has awakened to the new old world. Now that Einstein has fallen, and before that Lorentz fell, let us attend to the correct model, and this will of course be a model that can be refuted. First, the first basic assumption will be that the formulas that were set up to test the effect of speed and distance from the Earth, and in fact from the rest of the universe, are approximately correct. The second basic assumption will be that there is no particle without a field, and there is no field without a particle. The third basic assumption is that there are three particles in the universe beyond the central point, namely the alphatron, the positron, and the electron, and two fields. The strong field, which is a special case of the central field at the central point, and will be accompanied by the alphatron in a main way, and later we will discuss its matter in connection with the color of the positron and the electron. And the second force is an expression of the electromagnetic field accompanied by the positron and the electron. That is, two forces, two fields in the universe beyond the central point. The fourth basic assumption is that all the measurements, all these experiments that sought to prove the theory of relativity were required for the implications of the electromagnetic fields accompanying the electrons in atomic clocks and the like, and therefore for their potential, that is, for c, the speed of light, and not for other fields belonging to the second force in the universe, that is neither less nor more than the central force and its specific expression beyond the center point, that is, for the strong force that accompanied the alphatron in a primary way. A fifth basic assumption would be that each electron and each positron, with the positron in the opposite direction, is accompanied by an electric field that emanates from it radially in all directions and to infinity, with a decrease in energy, and also that in motion, a magnetic field is added infinitely in rotation towards the entire universe. The sixth basic assumption is that each alphatron, which is the smallest particle in the universe, is added a strong field as a special case of the central field, when the alphatron is in rotation at speeds infinitely greater than the rotations at which the electron and positron are. The seventh basic assumption is that at the center point of the universe, most of the mass of the universe is concentrated by means of identical addatrons carrying zero charge, and the central force in all directions of the universe when they are each and together in the framework of the enormous central rotation at the central point, with the central force towards the entire universe, which revolves around them with the local effects of each and every component in the universe on the other. The eighth premise is that the positron and the electron have a color in relation to the alphatron in the same direction, while the differences between them in this specific matter and the strong force as a special case of the central force are in their distance from the alphatron, whether it is inside the proton or inside the atom, their mass compared to the minimal mass of the alphatron, and the manner of rotation around themselves, which in the alphatron field is fundamental, and in the electron field is secondary compared to its radial principle. Now let's approach the horizontal arm with the correct formula, which is not only delta T equal to T0 times Lorentz's constant, but it is also delta L equal to L0 divided by Lorentz's constant. And here Lorentz was right, because these two modes describe one physical reality and are necessarily simultaneous. The electron in the satellite's atomic clock moves at a rate equal to the nucleus, at a uniform rate equal to the nucleus, and at the speed of the body it is inside, meaning that in the satellite it inevitably encounters a global electromagnetic network. Of all the electrons that are not ionized by the positrons in the world, and by the few free positrons that are not ionized by electrons. Here, a question could be asked. If it encounters some kind of electromagnetic grid, then why is there no difference in the behavior of each electron in different places with respect to the horizontal formula regarding the change in rate and the untested formula of the change in size? If so, why would the effect of that grid on the electron's rate in one place not be different from another place, like, for example, one place that is closer to a stronger electromagnetic field of a certain star than another place? Well, the answer to this, which will be explained later, is that the electron and its field do not feel at all the difference in the context of the speed at which they are in relation to that network. Any difference in the strength of this or that electromagnetic field, because they feel at every moment only the field in a point length when they intersect with them, and things will be explained and clarified later. Therefore, instead of the ether that did not exist and was not created, we have before us a physical factor, which operates according to the laws of nature, unlike the geometric structure for mathematicians of relative time, relative space, in the theory of special relativity, and space-time that distorts against mass, etc., in Einstein's general theory of relativity. The ether moves aside, space-time moves aside, and what enters is the global electromagnetic network in front of that electron in the atomic clock, in front of that field of that electron, the global electromagnetic network that necessarily networks the entire universe. The reaction against the same grid, therefore at the speed of the electron, is the same reaction. It is uniform and is the change in rate. The electron changes its frequency due to the influence of the global electromagnetic grid in a uniform manner, which is related horizontally to the speed according to the formula of minus v squared divided by 2c squared, and to the issue of size according to the change in size, equal to the original size divided by the Lorentz constant, plus the vertical component that I will discuss now. And therefore, it is required to calibrate the atomic clock on the ground before it goes up to the satellite. After the satellite detaches from the Earth, we obtain the result of its rate deviation due to its encounter with the electromagnetic grid using the electromagnetic beam that photographs the rate created due to the same speed of the satellite, in complete contrast to Einstein and in accordance with Lorentz, but with a small difference, without the ether. On the other hand, in the vertical component that was not taken into account by Lorentz, we see something completely different from Einstein's claim for space-time distortion. Here we see the direct effect of the distance from the nearest star and in fact of all the factors of the universe, although our measurements only allow resolutions that are mainly related to the effect of the Earth, the nearest star, in relation to that plane, that satellite, etc., on which the atomic clock is located. And here we move on to the correct explanation. What is that effect of the Earth? The ether went out, moved aside, and the space-time distortion moved aside. So what is left? Something else remains. Something else and amazing remains. The direct effect here on the electron is not of an ether or of an unphysical effect of a space-time distortion that does not exist, but of a field accumulation of the strong force accompanying the alphatron as a special case of the central force. This is a global field accumulation of the strong force accompanying the alphatrons in the universe as a whole, and of the central accumulation of the adatrons at the central point. Our measurements can currently focus on the effect of the nearest star, that is, on the effect of the alphatrons on the Earth. Moreover, they are not required at all to measure the strong force, but rather for its indirect effect on the behavior of the electron in front of the nucleus in the atomic clock, on the rate in the electromagnetic field of the electron in the atomic clock. The electron with the color is located at a distance from the entire accumulation of alphatrons on Earth. As it moves away, the effect of this accumulation becomes weaker. And here you will ask again, but why uniformly in front of every corner of the planet, since in every corner it can be argued that there is a different color? The answer to this is clear and is seen already in the atom in relation to the electron, or in the proton in relation to the positron, and between them to the electron. Already in the atom, the distance experienced by the electron in front of the small alphatron is enormous in relation to the small dimensions of the alphatron, and in relation to the dimensions of the electron, and even more so as it moves away from Earth. These are distances of enormous magnitude. When, from the perspective of the electron, the accumulation that it feels of the alphatrons on the planet Earth and the entire universe is a uniform effect in every place and place where it is located. The electron therefore has a color in relation to the alphatron in relation to the alphatron's field. And here I leave for further study a discussion of the fundamental meaning of the essence of the color and the detail of its action on the electron in relation to the alphatron and the adatron, which will be clarified later. As stated, the two forces that shape the universe are the electromagnetic force and the strong force as products of the central force, just as the three particles, the alphatron, the positron, and the electron, are products of the central particle, the adatron, to which the central force is attached. The difference between them, among other things, is that the electromagnetic force or field acts in a combination of fundamental electric radiality and magnetic rotationality in the movement of the electron or the movement of the positron in the opposite direction, while the particular and general central force acts in a fundamental rotational manner and at enormous speeds, both in the smallest particle in the universe, that is, in the vicinity of the alphatron, and in the largest particle in the universe at the central point, that is, in the action of the adatron, or the accumulation of adatrons at the central point itself. Hence, it can be assumed at this stage that color is necessarily a rotational property of a central field when on the electron or on the positron it is at speeds infinitely less than the speeds of the alphatron and the adatron, and it is the one that responds to the rotation of the particular and general central force, with a length of distance-dependent attraction. And as mentioned, we will leave this matter for now. As mentioned, these are distances of enormous orders of magnitude between the alphatron cluster and the electron in the atomic clock, and for that electron, certainly the ability to measure the effect here at this stage. This is a uniform effect wherever it is located in relation to the Earth and in relation to the entire universe. This ratio is measured in the formulas before us according to the direct effect on the color of the electron in the atomic clock and its rate, and indirectly is expressed in the measured effect on the electromagnetic field of the electron in the atomic clock. That is, it weakens uniformly the greater the distance, and therefore the further it moves away from that alphatron cluster on the Earth, the faster the rate accelerates, or as if time is shortening in relation to an atomic clock on the Earth, and it is not shortening. The rate accelerates regardless of the location, of course, and also regardless of that space-time distortion that doesn't exist. The formula for delta t here is equal to h, height, relative to the Earth, multiplied by g, the acceleration, divided by c squared. And it expresses the indirect effect of the strong force of the alphatron cluster, mainly that on the Earth and in fact of the entire universe, as well as of the adatron cluster at the central point. although these, in our means of testing, are now unmeasurable and constitute a very negligible effect on the rate of the electron in the atomic clock on the satellite relative to the rate of an atomic clock on the Earth. And hence, we are in the influence of two fields, in the influence of two forces, not only of the electromagnetic force, but also of the central force in its particular and general sense, both of which are a uniform effect that coincides according to the present means of measurement. The two horizontal and vertical formulas, namely, of minus v squared divided by 2 times c squared plus h times g divided by c squared, namely, in terms of electromagnetic observation only. Here we have conclusive proof that the theory of relativity is fundamentally flawed. It does not hold up in the fundamental parts of the universe, small or large. It is refuted by the very experiments that are claimed to prove it beyond any doubt. The atomic clock is always affected by two forces at a speed and altitude relative to an atomic clock on Earth: the electromagnetic force and the central force, general and specific. In the field's effect, associated with the three particles, the alphatron, the positron, and the electron that make up the universe apart the central point, and with the central particle from which they were created, the adatron, at the central point. And that's all. Not ether, not space-time, but physics, laws of nature, on the way to truth that will never be fully achieved.
All rights reserved to Dr. Alon Giladi.